With the release of Honkai Star Rail's patch 2.4, we got access to the Shackling prison, a place reserved for some of the Xianzhou Alliance's most dangerous and notorious criminals, as well as denizens of abundance that they have attempted to restrain. Among these prisoners, we know that Blade, Luocha, and Dan Heng had to endure being imprisoned here within these isolated walls that are located deep underneath the bottoms of Scale Gorge Waterscape. It is a structure that was built between the Xianzhou natives and the Vidyadhara. As such, the center of the Shackling prison is located in this location, unlike the one from the Xianzhou Jiaoxing, which apparently is high up among the clouds, which in my opinion is absolutely insane. Although very little has been explicitly told to us about the Shackling prison throughout this patch, I have reasons to believe that this place is way worse than we initially may have thought. And I say this knowing full well that Dan Heng and his past reincarnation Dan Feng were literally tortured in here. Not to mention the fact that they have a whole lava and freezer floors for prisoners to literally suffer in. And on top of all of that, they have a specific device called the Forest of Swords that they use in order to execute Borison by making them experience unimaginable torment. And they mention how this usually lasts for 3 whole days. Mind you, Huohuo though has been subject to this pain for literal centuries because that individual refuses to die. And even more on top of everything, there's the fact that there are 7 other judges that we do not know about that may or may not be experts at torturing prisoners based on what Hanya had said, because I remember it was one that specialized in whips, another in saw blades, another in acupuncture, which like that one maybe not torturing, but it's still horrifying to know. You know what I'm saying? So I'm scared is what I'm trying to convey here. So you're probably asking yourself by now, how can you make this place be that much worse than what we already know? Well, I have a good bunch of things that I wish to tell you, because by the end of this video, the Geneva Convention will probably sound more like the Geneva Suggestion. Because at the Shackling prison, not only are prisoners being tortured, but also experimented on, placed essentially on solitary confinement, and potentially, depending on how you see things, they even do false imprisonment. So yeah, throughout this video I want to explore both the lore of the Shackling prison and explain some of the little theories that I have been coming up with based on the information that I have gathered. So with all that being said, let us see why the Shackling prison is worse than you imagined. It is often said that history is written by the victors, or the history of fictionologies, but that is a whole nother can of worms that I will attempt to dissect another day. Regardless, this makes it hard to tell sometimes what is actually reality versus what is fictional. Regarding the Shackling prison though, we know the following. Criminals of ranging status are held here. Those who have committed low offense crimes are usually held within the transitory hold, while those that have committed high offense crimes are either held within the Grimfrost hold or the Pyroscape hold, depending on what their species fears the most. The Pyroscape hold is described as follows. The Scorching Swelter dwells in this prison level, designed to incarcerate and punish abominations that fear the heat. On the other hand, the Grimfrost hold is described as the chilling wind sweeps through this prison level, designed to incarcerate and punish abominations that fear the cold. And mind you, this is like extreme levels, because on the Pyroscape hold, you see literally lava in order to overheat their prisoners, while in the Grimfrost hold, it's literally just ice. not necessarily ice, but like they mentioned how the winds that blow within this dwell is even colder than those of like the northern peak or like somewhere that is supposed to be incredibly cold. And that's horrifying. Additionally, we know that violating any of the 10 unpardonable sins will get you in here, and these include the following: involuntary immortalization, in which somebody forces another person to become immortal; immortality theft, this usually applies to foreigners and refers to when people try to seek the immortality from the Xianzhou natives; beguilement, which refers to manipulating other people's minds; Mara ensnarement, which means to apply Mara struck onto somebody; fratry murder, which is to violently take the life of a Xianzhou native; illicit espionage, essentially just trying to steal data from one of the Xianzhou ships; prison break, which, I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, hey, if you're in prison, if you break out, it's illegal. Like, no, you don't say. Sowing discord, essentially causing chaos that would essentially cause problems for a lot of the Xianzhou natives; incitement of a riot, this usually refers to military forces being pinned down against each other; and last but not least, capsizing the Xianzhou, essentially trying to sink the ship, which is absolutely terrifying if I do say so myself. I definitely wanted to at least mention all these things because I want to dive deeper into one of these in particular, especially because of some information that I have gathering a little bit forward. But with that, let's see some examples with the prisoners. Prisoners that I wish to highlight in regards to the Shackling prison, and just in general all of this, are Dan Feng, Jing Liu, and Hule, as they provide a lot of insightful information regarding the prison itself. And starting things off, I want to begin with Jing Liu, because although we haven't been told explicitly that she has been imprisoned in here, it appears like this may have been a possibility after what happened with Luocha and the two of them meeting with Jin Yuan and the Cloud Knights. I say this because one of the most calm Borison, Arma, who actually runs his little shop within the prison, mentions how he can get to leave the prison 1 day a week if he fulfills 13 outstanding accolades, just like Madame Jing Liu. The main reason I bring this up though is because the implications of it are kind of interesting, especially with everything that happened with Hule within the story, because we know that Hule is planning to prison break in order to absolutely destroy Jing Liu because he's very angry like that, right? Um, I mainly just wanted to point this out because this would explain why Hule decided to suddenly stay within the Shackling prison. Because to a certain extent, I imagine that he does know what happened with Jing Liu from other prisoners, but nothing really is said for sure. Maybe he doesn't even know that she is Maharashtra. Regardless, right? The main thing is, once he heard that Jing Liu wasn't the Laofu, it would be wild for her not to be within the Shackling prison, right? So that would probably be the reason why Hule decided to stay within the walls. At first, I thought it was maybe he stayed in order to help other, more horrifying prisoners break free from the denizens of abundance. But maybe there's other ulterior motives. I really cannot tell, but I'm also just horrified at the implication. Also, speaking of Fule, we do know a few little things, such as the fact that he is a Brute Lord, which, fun fact, Yanqing was able to slay 3 of them. So I'm very curious to see if Yanqing will be the one to actually defeat Hule and get his W. But that being said, he's also a pack leader for one of the Borison packs that appear to be from Duran, and although we do not know much about him, we are given a set of notes that help fill us in on, like, in order to understand how terrifying of a creature he actually is. Mainly that one needs to be very careful due to the loopy toxin that he releases that can induce fear on people, and that apparently he has to be swapped from location to location yearly, with only very selected people being able to know this intel, which usually just refers to Cloud Knight generals and the judges. Which surprisingly, I like they're like the biggest authority apparently. I'm actually very confused, but at the same time, you know what? I guess it makes sense. Uh, Additionally, one of the things that like they mentioned throughout the Trailblaze mission is how Hule is like subject is being subject to the Forest of Swords, a device that has been forged by the Punishment Division of the Ten Lords Commission, and that it is meant to subject prisoners to intense torment in order to execute them. Most Borison die within 3 days of being exposed to this weapon, but Hule has somehow been able to withstand it for literal centuries. And you have to admit that that already sounds terrifying, but you want to know something that's even more interesting? The Forest of Swords, that name, is actually the name of Blade's enhanced basic attack. So I may be overthinking this and I may be overanalyzing this, but what if Blade, back when he was still known as Yin Xing, was hired by the Punishment Commission in order to create this weapon of execution? I feel like it would be kind of in brand for him, but it's also terrifying. I want to look deeper into this, but I have not been able to find any more information on this. So hopefully, when the next patch comes out, I can learn more about this because I'm very intrigued. And last but not least, I want to also real quick talk about Dan Heng, who had to endure the unpardonable sin that his past self, Dan Feng, had committed. And it's in particular because we know how horrifying this place has been to Dan Heng. As a matter of fact, like legitimately, the moment that we approach the place, he starts getting shivers down his spines, and he even says, "Oh, like this place is just as cold as I remember it being," which, to a certain extent, makes me think that he was held at the Grim Frost Hold, because if his first association is cold, and I'm assuming it's probably just a trauma response of seeing the gate and just all the memories flooding back into him, that is just absolutely horrifying. And definitely do take into account that even, like, despite everything, he is the Imbibitor Lune. He has massive amounts of power. They can't just put him in a regular prison cell and expect him to not want to break out, especially given the fact that when he was done hung, he knows himself to be innocent of the crime of his past self. As a matter of fact, in the video for Brighter Than the Sun, he literally exclaims, "Why am I being punished for the sins of my past self?" Like, those are his crimes, not mine. And you 100% know that if he could break free, he would break free. And then it would, like, things would probably get even worse, because then that would go against the unpardonable sin of prison break, and it would probably worsen his sentence. And oh boy, do I have more horrifying things to think about his punishment, because uh, it definitely feels like people were having fun torturing Dan Heng once he was shackled, because even on the animation we see how they tug it at his chains and want him to suffer pain, because like this was probably way more into like his sentencing. We don't really know how long his sentencing lasts, but it must be a reasonably long amount, especially without sunlight and other things. It's terrifying. And mind you, all of these things are the things that they are willing to tell us out in the open, or at least that I was able to gather on a surface level. Now imagine what kind of things they actually have been trying to hide away from us. If they're willing to be open about all of these things, surely things can't get any worse, right? I want to make it clear that this next segment is more than anything me doing a little bit of theorizing, but at the same time, I do kind of want to show the things that have led me to make these conclusions. And it is because I got curious and decided to look into the prisoners that are within the walls of the Shackling prison. And when I went into the transitory hold, there were a lot of prisoners that were very odd and very confusing. In all honesty, I did not know how to take of it, but some of them just really felt like they weren't there for like a proper reason. Like legitimately, there is a man that is dancing, and I'm confused as to why he's there. I try to look into many things, and I'm not exactly sure what the heck is going on. There was a singer in the stone, as well as an out of control dummy, which more than anything feel like anomalies rather than actual criminals. Maybe I'm not looking too deep into it, maybe I'm getting confused about it, but it's really interesting. Because to a certain extent, it feels like these people not only are imprisoning those that have committed like massive crimes, but also things that they consider to be unknown or too weird slash too odd for there to exist within the Xianzhou Laofu. And it could possibly be in that area of sowing discord, where these things are completely out of the ordinary and would probably make people panic. So I can kind of understand where things are coming from, but I feel like things just got incredibly darker when I interacted with Unity, which is apparently a sentient AI, like a hive mind. Also, I feel like it's a Rick and Morty reference, but like that aside, like legitimately, it is a hive mind of over 107 entities, and they are quite sentient and quite dangerous, if I do say so myself. Upon interacting with Unity, one of the options I remember seeing was that you could ask them, "How did you get captured?" And you're like, "I'm not sure. I was existing, and suddenly I was now imprisoned." And they even mention how they are kept alive purely because the Xianzhou Laofu wants to research into them. They want to make sure that they understand whatever the hell this creature is before they terminate it. And it's kind of scary because it implies that they must be doing experiments on it to verify how much of a threat this thing might be. And like even Unity expresses how Xianzhou technology is far superior to what they as a hive mind are. So I'm not sure why they must do like these sort of tests. I mean, it's a biological life form that is completely artificial. I'm not sure if I should call it even biological, which is it's incredibly intriguing and incredibly concerning, is what it is. But yeah, going back to the topic though, like the fact that the Xianzhou Laofu is literally imprisoning this thing and potentially doing experiments on it to, better understand it, kind of implies that they can do the same with other existing beings, right? Like maybe I'm going insane, maybe I'm like going crazy, but I feel like the trauma that Dan Heng endured within these walls was way worse than just torture. Let me explain. So we know that the High Elder of the Vidyadhara is supposed to draw a lot of powers and is supposed to help, the Xianzhou and everywhere, right? And Bailu didn't really regenerate right when they became the High Elder. So, what if all those tortures and all the things they were doing to Dan Heng back when he was imprisoned were also experiments they did upon him because they're like, maybe the previous High Elder of the Vidyadhara has to do with why Bailu, the new Elder of the Vidyadhara, is having problems with their powers. So what if we test where these powers have remained, or I don't know, things like that. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is it's the implication of them doing research on Dan Heng is absolutely horrifying. And mind you, this would have been while Dan Heng is already living in like incredibly horrible living conditions. So the fact that this could have been even further punishment is completely insane. And I want to say this, right? In particular because it feels very strange that when you look at the criminal history, you know, all the criminal notes and like little fun facts about the prisoners that we have currently within the Xianzhou Laofu, they have Dan Heng's information redacted. Or everything regarding the Imbibitor Lune is completely gone, wiped of existence. So, on one hand, maybe it could be because, you know, oh, like, I mean, it's not the same person anymore. So let's just leave that aside, or just to save face, it's like, you know what, maybe people shouldn't learn about what happened and how one of our heroes literally destroyed parts of our nation and broke out the unpardonable sins. But what if that information had actually been redacted because they committed war crimes against Dan Heng? I really do not know. So, hey, if you guys have any input on that, or maybe even like an extra theory regarding that, please be sure to leave it down in the comments, because, I don't know, I do find that the implication of hidden stories within the main story itself is really cool, and I've been diving a lot deeper into these things, and every time I do, I feel like I'm getting more horrified by, like, the hidden little details that they drop for Stariel, but I love it. I don't know, just dark stories are cool. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. Maybe I'm just reading too much into things and I'm going insane. But yeah. Okay, so this last segment of the video, I kind of want to dedicate it to the concept that I mentioned of potentially the Xianzhou has been committing some false imprisonments because of the implication of how marriage struck works, right? And the worst for it is that now this got stuck into my mind because I was looking at the lore of the trace materials, right? Those things that you use in order to level up your like character's traces, the like Borison teeth, the bullets from the Galaxy Rangers, the twigs from the abundance, and in particular the one that spiked this theory is the immortal lumen twig, which is what you use to level up some of your abundance characters. And in it, one of the main things that they mention is how, you know, like, as decreed by the 10 Lords Commission, all who are near the Mara-struck state will be seized by the infernal judges and cast into the Shackling prison, meaning that you don't need to be Mara-struck to be sent there. You just need to show hints that you are becoming Mara-struck in order to be yeeted over there. And that's a terrifying implication, because you could potentially heal, I feel. Maybe, I mean, it's weird because it does have to involve like grudges, like the things that you carry on as an immortal being, because all your memories are gonna be remain, and you can only remain like remember your griefs. So true, eventually they will become Mara-struck, but this kind of puts into perspective that whole fear that that character in Bailu's story had. If they were caught becoming Mara-struck, immediately jail time, and they were screwed, right? But regardless, the main issue I have with this, like, terminology that they decided to implement is that, sure, you can become Mara-struck, or you can be close to becoming Mara-struck, but, you know, you're not yet. And you're still conscious as the person that has not become Mara-struck yet. So it feels unfair to be already in prison, and I feel like the way that the Xianzhou handles their prison, it's not the best place in order for them to, you know, heal. So I feel like them sending them to prison just makes the situation worse and makes them become Mara-struck. Not only because of the living conditions, but also because the trial by the karmic mirror that supposedly exposes everything from your past, and then you're getting recorded every minute within the Shackling prison, because yes, they do in fact record every singular minute that you are within the Shackling prison. So you're in surveillance 24/7. So you're essentially just screwed in like regards to like your mental anguish. Also, no sunlight hours, so even worse. Like, I don't know, just the idea of you are still conscious as the person that you are, but you know you're gonna become marrow-struck. So you're sent to jail, and still the same person that you are, with your memories still ongoing, you're just kind of screwed. And if you try to escape, guess what? Maybe in a hypothetical scenario, you didn't commit a crime before, you were gonna get healed within this prison, not really, but you know, you could have healed within the walls of the Shackling prison, but you attempted to escape, so now you committed one of the 10 unpardonable sins, therefore, you are staying here because you tried to escape. It's just so bad, and I may be overthinking this again, but just it's absolutely horrifying when you look deeper into things, isn't it? But yeah, as a whole, the Shackling prison is quite an interesting place. It's a horrifying place. And I did want to talk a bit more about these things, especially because, in theory, some of these things are legitimately very, very scary and very, very horrifying. And I kind of want to know your guys' opinions on what you think about the Shackling prison, especially for those that, you know, like Dan Heng and Bybrother Lune, whatever member of the High Cloud Quintet. In all honesty, what are your thoughts on the Shackling prison? Because I feel like, again, it just keeps getting scarier the more I dig into it. But at the same time, I should have expected this from a place that is used as a like prison of war. Real quick though, before I begin to wrap up the video, I also want to mention real quick some of the other prisoners that I didn't highlight throughout this video, but I thought were like really, really interesting. So just like the creator of the hexacubes is here, which apparently got a job within the prison to leave hexacubes because people are dumb. So during a prison break, they might be like, "Ooh, mini game," and then they get distracted playing said minigame, leaving time for the judges to actually arrive and imprison them back in. Uh, Truly, it shows that even when in prison, ADHD is always going to ruin you. Um, there's also Doot Doot, which is apparently a doppelganger, and if you actually go check their cell after you finish their like mini event where you get an achievement, they will be there disguised as the Trailblazer, which honestly, it's a little bit scary. I don't know. It's just they imprison a lot of things. To be fair, that one has every right to be there. It murdered, stole identities. Uh, that one I understand why it's there. But also, the one that broke my mind, and I'm not sure if it's a prisoner or just faulty machinery from the Xianzhou Alliance, but there is a broken Arumaton that essentially keeps exclaiming that humanity must be driven into extinction, that the Intellitron are to be the ones that rule the world, and that a new emperor will soon be born. And I don't think anybody's talking about that individual. And even though I try to look as much as possible into it, probably because I'm looking at the Xianzhou, I haven't found anything yet, but I'm definitely going to be looking more into it. Yeah, that is something that is quite horrifying. So we're going to look into Scrollum lore and maybe Sapphire lore and see where the hell a new emperor will be born that could essentially lead to a whole robot apocalypse narrative. Yeah, I'm as confused as you are, but also kind of excited. So yeah, with all that being said, thank you very much for hearing me ramble on for like, I think like half an hour at this point. I really do appreciate the fact that you're here, you stuck all the way to the end. I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your day, night, morning, whatever time zone applies to you at the current time that you're watching on this video. If you like this sort of content, please be sure to subscribe. It's free, it only takes a second. And if you ever feel like the quality of my content begins to drop, you're more than welcome to unsubscribe. I really love the fact that we can get to like build this community, and I'm very happy that the last two videos got like a lot of hype behind them, like the Super Break video and the Yanqing with Yun Li video. Those were like nice ones to have like discussions with the community. So hopefully that maybe could happen with this one as well. I'm not sure. The Shackling prison is kind of weird, but yeah, I'm rambling on like way too much. Thank you so much for watching all the way up to this point. I appreciate you all. Bye. Also, real quick, thank you for 2,600 subscribers. Now, bye.